the church is definitely in decline. But the churches that are growing a lot of times are offering really impactful experiences. So that's why the Pentecostal church is the fastest growing denomination, Christian denomination in the world, because it provides an amazing experience. Like you go in
Right.
and you know you're going to shout, you're going to run.
Right.
Well, you know, which is part of the reason why I just couldn't throw away the church.
Right.
Because of that experience. Like the spirituality of the Black church is unparalleled in my personal opinion. So I think people are going to continue to flock to that. And then I've tried to create a space where people can still engage the high-spirited emotion of like a Pentecostal or charismatic worship experience, but then also get deep into the academic rigor of understanding what all of this stuff means.
Yeah.
Because there's been this gap between the academy and the church. And I was just crazy enough to think in seminary, I want to close that gap for the people that do ministry with me.
Yes.
So we talk a lot about church history and the history of the Bible and all of that stuff so that people can understand when we read these scriptures, we're not reading them in a vacuum. They're not static. They are written in a context. They were translated in a context. Depending on what version you're reading, there is an agenda behind each version.
Right.
So I think people are going to figure out where they fit as they see the menu of Black church in front of them.
Yes.
And then there are people who just not going to do it. They're going to find spiritual community in non-Christian spaces. And I honor people who go that route as well.
What you're doing is so critical. I argue aloud that part of the disadvantage of liberation theology practitioners is they didn't go on television.
Accessibility.
Jeremiah Wright, in condemnation of the country in bombing innocent people around the world, really wasn't brought to the fore until the rise of Obama.
Right.
Then they went into the vaults. But he and then his immediate apostolic succession being Freddie Haynes and so many others never went on the Word Network, never went on Daystar, never went on TBN. So it was the Underground Railroad.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing the same thing is happening in that social media space because I believed, albeit falsely, that more prophetic voices was going to rise in the pandemic. When everybody is shut down and we all glued in, come out from amongst them. And I didn't hear it. So the voice in the wilderness has got to get a megaphone.
Absolutely. I totally, which is why I'm so loud.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times it's not about, you know, who is the most learned, who has the most substance, but who is the most accessible.
Yes.
So,
you are so loud because that group is so silent.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? You are not one of the fathers of the faith. You ain't the head of no denomination, no reformation. But different from, let's say, the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s, you don't have apostolic fathers giving correction unless you're a pregnant teenager.
Right. Then we got to bring you up in front of the church.
Oh, yeah. Now, nothing else. We ain't say nothing about babies in cages. We ain't going to say nothing about Palestine.
No.
Nothing about Sudan. Nothing about Haiti.
No about
Bring me
Congo.
this 15-year-old, and the word of the Lord is don't have a baby shower.
Yeah. I mean, when you're...
Oh, Mary, don't you weep.
When your theology is rooted in shame, that makes sense.
Woo! Listen. Listen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If your relationship with God is rooted in shame, it's rooted in sin consciousness, right? That everything we do revolves around trying to avoid sin.
Yes.
And then the definition of sin gets lost in translation because it's different everywhere you go.
Yes.
So then we just associate shame with stuff that really ain't harming nobody.
Yeah.
But it disturbs our theological sensibilities and our social sensibilities. So it's like we stigmatize that thing associated with shame and disgrace, and then make you feel like trash about who you are, just your natural humanity. and then have the nerve to want to get up and correct you, in front of everybody. I just, let me not.
Yeah. So the black church has reduced sin to sex.
Yes.
Outside of that, I took my wife to the Atlanta Orchestra 2 weeks ago, and they have Rick Ross. Now I got season tickets. It don't even matter. You go to Rick Ross, the Saints came out, they got the bat light and came out and said, "How are you representing the gospel?" I said, "Have you ever been to an opera where the themes are murder, betrayal?"
Have you read the Bible?
About adultery. So if it's Chopin, it's okay. If it's Rick Ross, then give us Barabbas. Yeah. So the whole thing on have life and have it more abundantly for what I'm going to call fundamental saints. We used to reduce to Jerry Falwell, but fundamental saints is go to church and go to the buffet. That's a full life. Yeah, so the church has so shrunk wrapped your life that anything you do for enjoyment, for leisure, for pleasure, or for stress release is in fact frowned upon.
Yes, because fundamentalist Christianity colonizes everything it puts its hands on.
Wow.
So we have to make everything Christian.
Yes.
Right? So you can't just go out to the club. You need to go to the Christian club.
Yes.
You can't just, you can't just use a Ouija board. You need to get a Christian Ouija board, right? You can't just do things you can't just go to the comedy show. You got to go to the Christian comedy show. And I don't have any problem with these Christian spaces, but when you lift them up as a standard and everything else is demonic, then I got a problem with you. Because now you are demonizing people who are simply trying to live their life and they're not hurting nobody. And I want fundamentalist Christians to leave people alone is what I want.
Wow. Listen, I heard one preacher espouse the values of Trump because he doesn't drink. I was like, that means all of his decisions are sober. God. Right. He's sober mind making the decision. We taking over Canada, Greenland, and the canal.
The Gulf of Mexico is now going to be the Gulf of America. It's like, just please, somebody put a muzzle on this dude. Like,
because of the experience that you mentioned that happens in Pentecostal, neo-Pentecostal spaces, does that experience not make it conducive to teach?
I disagree.
No, it's a question.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, I'm saying like people will say that. And I'm saying I disagree with people who have that perspective because like when people come to the faith community, we're a 99% digital church, right?
Yes.
We're building capacity to do more in-person gatherings. But when we have done in-person gatherings, our worship is very charismatic. And there are a lot of people who come because they've seen me online and they see these sound bites where I'm going off or I'm, talking about something real academic and intellectual. And they expect to come to church for worship and get more of like a Presbyterian style, walking around with a lavalier, just teaching type of thing. And we have church.
Yeah.
We shout, we dance, we run. Every now and then I hoop. The band is loud.
Yeah.
And there is still a deep wrestling with the text, the topic that we're dealing with. So what I wanted to show people is that these two things can coexist.
Yes.
You can have your learning and your burning.
Yes.
You don't have to sacrifice one for the other.
Yeah. My dad said something to me. This might going to be my last time quoting him today. But I think my dad said something that has me up at night. He says, in every major black city in America, the largest church is usually pastored by somebody who can't preach.
Yeah.
Preaching has become a dying art form.
Yeah.
Where people are not necessarily going. When we were coming up, if Rev could preach and the choir was killing it, they got it. But now folks are saying, what ministries you got for the kids?
Yeah.
What ministries you got for married couples? Mm-hmm. Does y'all's ministry got a golf outing? Yeah. When is the married couples retreat? Yeah. It is preaching still the central magnetic force of the Black church?
I think it's at the center. I don't think it's there alone. I still think preaching is very important. I just think people are looking for more than that.
Yeah.
They're looking for, because I believe the primary work of the church is to build community.
Yeah.
And so when I go and consult and teach about digital community building, I ask rooms full of people, like, what thing do you value most about your church? And when I'm in rooms full of pastors, I say, what did you value most about the last church you attended where you weren't the pastor?
Wow.
And 99% of the responses are tied to community. Maybe 1% is preaching.
Yeah.
Because people are looking for a connection to each other. They want to be around people and feel that human connection.
Yes.
And the preaching can draw people to that. But if there's no human connection, preaching can only hold you for so long. So I believe it's at the center. It's just not there alone.
Yeah. When I'm going through, I'm looking for me a storefront. I'm telling you, it ain't a real church for me if the pastor picture ain't in the lobby. if I don't smell Crisco grease, I know ain't no power in there.
I feel you.
I want to be 9 rows in with a funeral home fan.
Yeah.
I don't need no screen on the wall. I need a few church mothers who nobody know how she got there. She ain't got a car. She just arrives and then just leaves.